It's fun for me to throw stuff too sometimes. The clay's a little bit stiff, which is kind of nice. It's kind of good for this. It means that I'll hopefully be able to get it taller and thicker. I mean thinner. Make it bigger, yeah.
What's the line?
So I'm gonna do a cylinder like I showed when I was doing Takako's demo. So not round on the inside. There are some air bubbles popping and or harder spots in the clay. Is this clay straight from the bag? Or is it reclaimed?
No, it's from the bag.
It's from the bag, okay. So I'm just compressing the bottom. If you ever want to check the thickness of the floor, you can take something and poke through and see how thick it is. So I don't want to go too much. I don't really want to make it any thinner, something this size, but I do want to compress it. And just like last time, I'm starting much wider than I want this to end up. And I'm going to keep this cone shape the whole time too. I'm trying to, yeah, do you hear those bubbles popping? Just so everyone knows, it's possible to throw things with air bubbles. It's not going to blow up in the kiln, but it can make it more difficult because you'll be throwing in the pop and then all of a sudden there's an absence of material, so it's thinner in one spot, thicker in others, and it makes it pretty challenging. Like you can see there's that spot and you can see it bumping. So you want to show up in the rim. So if I can get it to come all the way up top, I might be able to compress this out or just cut off the top. Yeah, there's a pretty big, oh, can you see it?
Or
This thing?
there?
Oh yeah, is that it? That is it. Yeah, there we go. It's a big air bubble. So you were asking earlier, if you can catch it early like this, I'm gonna try and, there's another big one down here. So all of that is going to make it just a little bit harder. We'll try it here actually, let's see. Yeah. So I want to definitely keep the top a lot less wide than the bottom. I'm just trying to maintain that shape. So you're not going to start, for shaping, you don't start shaping the piece until you've thrown an even cylinder. First step is even distribution of material vertically. And it can still get a little bit thinner later, but like it's definitely still a lot thicker at the bottom right now. So I want to get that up. Into here. And what I'm hoping is that I can also get it to be as thin as those spots where those air bubbles were and kind of get it to work out a little bit. Try to get the water out of the inside as you go. It's going to get harder. I'm pushing all the way in at the bottom. Again, I'm compressing across the floor now, so I started much wider. You can see it was like slipping and doing some crazy stuff. I still want to try and finish and get all the way to the top. Give it a little bit of compression here because I'm a little worried about it falling. So it's hard to, maybe it's not hard to tell, but from about here to the top is pretty even, but it's still thicker at the bottom. And it's actually a little thin like here to here. And that's why I was doing that twisting. Did everyone see it twisting a little bit for a second before I use this? So I'm trying to provide some compression. It's thin in the middle, so I just need to make a note of that. And, you know, we have the cylinder. I'm gonna work on the rim a little bit before I go too much further. Try and work out whatever shape it is that I'm after and the thinness that I'm wanting for something this size. So I just squeezed a little bit, and I'm gonna try and maintain and get everything to be there for something this size. I generally like I like doing pictures more than vases. Vases I think are really hard because there's a lot of bad shapes. And I don't know that I know any of the good shapes. So there's no water on the surface, so I'm adding some more water to avoid friction. I'm gonna start doing a little shaping now. So shaping is a combination of pushing out and collaring in. You have to remember that things look wider if the top is not as wide. In other words, all the proportions are in relationship to one another. So if you want something super wide, that often means the bottom and the top need to be very small and it appears really, really wide. It is wide by comparison. If you find yourself just trying to make something really, really wide constant, like to get the entirety of the width to do all of your visual work for you, you might run into some problems. So I'm just pushing out a little bit from the inside now. I did grab a little bit more clay. And I'm thinking about my proportions. Where's my widest point going to be? Maybe 2/3 of the way here. So I'm setting up rough proportions. And that's the very hard thing about a vase, for me at least. Wherever the width of this bottom ends up is going to be about the width that I want the top to end up. I want them to be about the same. And that's kind of a safe bet. I have this, I really kind of like this shape. It's like a milk jug. I'll turn it up. I'm pushing in at the bottom again, compressing, grabbing, fixing that clay. So I'm gonna push out a little bit more, not very much at a time. You can see I'm just barely doing any. If you do too much too fast, it's going to fall. And it's thin in these shoulders, which kind of is really not ideal. So I'm gonna alter the shape a little bit and not make the shoulders as steep because I know it's thin there already and it wants to fall. And if I don't want this opening to be really wide, I need to keep it in check. So I'm gonna show you what's called collaring. So cylinder first, push out slowly from the inside. Collaring is the way you make things go from wide to less wide, and it's hard to do. The idea being that you're going to put equal pressure from all angles towards the center of this circle, towards the center of the piece. And it's hard to avoid friction when you're doing this, and it wants to show anything that's uneven. So I'm gonna start and try and keep it there. The reality is when you collar something, we're not removing material. So when you stretch clay, the only way it gets wider is by getting thinner. The only way it gets less wide is by getting thicker. So it means that you need to come back and throw to keep it even. This gets really hard because you can't, my hands can't, my thumbs can no longer touch each other. Right? I can't reference my other hand. So it starts to get much, much harder. I'm gonna do a little bit of cheating. I know it's a little thick in that corner. I don't know if everyone remembers, but I have that rule for myself where I don't want to trim any of my cylinders unless there's some, you know, some real reason to. So my goal is to have it be even the whole way. So I just took off a little bit of clay at the bottom. I really don't like the way the bottom looks. I'm gonna go in and do a little bit more shaping, this time with my rib. It's pretty even. I'm gonna compress. And first I'm gonna try and get the water out of the inside. I don't really know a good rib. So I'm just playing around. Okay, so slow wheel speed. You need a flexible rib for this. And it's actually really thin at the bottom, which is not bad, but I can't see what it looks like either, to be honest. So it's usually if I'm doing bigger things, I will stand up and look. Like it's a little odd heavy. But at this point I'm gonna run with it. I'm gonna make some changes at the top. I'm gonna do one more ribbing. The other thing that I'm looking for that's really, really hard is to not have any flat spots. I don't want it to be like flat here, flat here. I want it to be subtly round the entire time. Which is what we're looking for in the bowls as well, and it's just a very hard thing to accomplish. And that's better. It's a lot more round. I'm gonna leave the rest of this and I'm just gonna be working only at the top here. So I need a little bit of water, but I don't want so much water that it goes way into the inside and I can never get it back out. I know it got thicker. I'm gonna see if I can go one more time and make this a little thinner. Does everyone see this like bump here, bump here? Really don't like, or like I can't fit my hand in there though. I'm kind of I'm in a trouble spot. It's still flat. I know the top looks crazy, but I'm just watching it and being careful. You can get things to go back if you're careful. so that's like a little, now I can make a painting in the middle or something like that. Is that helpful? I'm gonna cut this in half.
Are these bubbles or something?
Right here?
Yeah.
No, it's just slip.
Oh.
It's just slip. Yeah.
There might be a bubble around there. I don't know.
Or maybe there is
There's been a little bump. That's
maybe there is a bubble. There are bubbles. Oh yeah, those are bubbles. Yeah, it's easier when there's not bubbles. So, but it is possible still. But because I'm gonna cut this up, I'm just gonna show. So like, I mean that is better. This isn't what I would say. Is, I was making this for myself that this isn't really a very resolved form. Like I'm not really fully convinced by its proportions and the mark making like that. I don't know, maybe that's cool, I have no idea. But you can kind of do whatever you want, you know. Maybe that's cooler.
It is.
Yeah, it's fun, right? And then you could trim it and do, I don't know what else you could do, but you can do whatever you want, basically is what I'm saying. It might be kind of interesting with like a handle over the top or some small handles or something, but let's see. Same thing, these in some ways are easier to pick up the bowls with your hands, just so everyone knows.
Oh no.
I just want to say, it's not, I don't, so pretty even.
Wow, that is really good.
Right, it's a little thick, tiny bit thicker here, but you can see, I mean, I've done it for a long time and it's still thicker and thinner as it gets up. So, yeah. So it's even cylinder, that's okay, yeah. Even cylinder, keeping a cone the whole time, then straight, and then pushing out a little bit, pushing in a little bit, pushing out a little bit. You just have to do a little bit at a time, small increments.